Tēnā koe e hoa. That means hi, my friend. What I'd like you to do is, first thing in revision 7, is I'd like you to copy all of this out into your 1B5 book. We're going to use this. Press pause and then carry on when you've got that done. Great, welcome back. First thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust the trial balance. You've already done this, so we're going to use the information from the adjusted trial balance. So let's make a start. First one, number 1, is driver wages owing. So you can see down here. So what's it called, driver's wages owing? What's the balance day adjustment? Good, what side does it go on? Okay, so write it in. And the amount. What were the wages for? Oh, we know wages. So we're going to edit to both sides. Excellent. First one done. Cross it off. Number 2, prepaid insurance. What's the balance day adjustment called? Great. And what side does it go on? Add it in. No GST to adjust for on this one, which is good. And where does it come off on that side? Prepaid what? Good, let's adjust it. Cross that one off. Alright, and then third one, send invoice to KFC for delivery fees. So this business is delivering. So KFC 4,600 including GST. So the first thing you're going to do is find the GST component and the non-GST. So that 4,600, we're going to add that to accounts receivable. Okay, and my calculator says 32,300. Just write it small here because there are 2 adjustments to do to accounts receivable. So we've done that 4,600. Then do the 4,000. What was the 4,000 for? Good, so add it to delivery fees. And the 600, that's GST. We're collecting it on behalf of the government, so we're going to have to add that on. Good, add that to yours, and the second one's done. Remember to press pause if you need to replay or catch up. Write off bad debts, 2,300, including GST. The including GST means we need to take it off. Divide by 1.15, 2 easy figures there. So the 2,300, I'm going to take that off accounts receivable. Examiners quite like having nice easy figures. That helps with the allowance later on. You've got 2,000. What's a 2,000? Good, so we'll add that to bad debts. And the 300. Good, so that's GST. In this case, the GST we can claim back because we don't owe the government anymore. We were going to collect 300 on behalf of them, but because we're not doing that, we don't have to pay it. That one's done. And number 5, allowance for doubtful debts. Adjusted to be 5% of accounts receivable. So accounts receivable is now 30,000 times 5%. 1,500. So you're going to change the allowance here from 2,000 down to 1,500, a decrease of 500. So where will you put that decrease of 500? Good, so we're going to write minus 500. Doubtful debts. Which takes us to the ledgers. So that's our focus for today. So we're going to start off with driver's wages. Anything that is printed here in the trial balance requires us to write the word balance here. So I'm going to get you to, we'll do one at a time. So we'll put the date 31st of the 3rd in balance. And driver's wages had an opening balance of 180,000 on the debit side. On the debit side? Good. Notice that we've gone up to 183. So we're just telling the story of what happened. Why did it go up from 180 to 183? and that's because we had this accrued expense here. Of 3,000. As it's an expense, we need to close that off and make the end balance 0. So we start off next year with 0 balance in our driver's wages. Do you remember where we close it off to? Good. Income summary. Done. Tick that one off. Insurance. Is insurance printed over here? Yep, and it was printed 17,000. Debit or credit side. Great. And then insurance went down to 15,900. And why did it go down? And then because it's an expense, we need to close it off to 0. So closing it off, what account? Done. Prepayments. I've done a little bit of a trick here. The examiner's best trick is they like putting extra lines in here. We don't need all the lines. Prepayments we've got down there is 1,100. There's no balance because it wasn't printed at the start. So what was it that was prepaid? Call it out. And so it ends up, we added a debit of 1,100. So the balance is 1,100. That's all we have to do. It's an asset. Starts next year with 1,100. Don't close that one off. Accrued expense is similar because it's a new figure coming in. Putting 3,000 in the credit. Do you remember what it was for? Just number 1 there. Driver's wages. Great. Accounts receivable. You see there's a few changes there. Started off with that balance of 27,700. So again, the balance figure is if it's already printed. And we don't, if it's a balance, we don't have a transaction here. Then it went up to 32,300. And that was for fees and GST. You shouldn't really abbreviate here, so you probably should have put delivery fees and GST. And that's going to be debiting it by 4,600. That's the invoice sent out, how much more they owe. And then it went down to 30,000 because we wrote off bad debts. Of 2,300. Nice easy one. Don't close that because once again it's an asset. Great, I've moved the webcam out of the way so we can look at the next ones. Bad debts, and then again an expense, and again it's got a printed number up there. So we'll put the date and balance. Anytime you put date and balance in, it gives you 1 mark that you're going to need for the exam. So the opening balance was 2,000 on the debit side, and it went up to 4,000. And that was because we had more bad debts, so we wrote bad debts off against accounts receivable. So we got 2,000, added 2,000 to get 4,000. Because it's an expense, where do we close it to? Good. And we get rid of the whole 4,000 there. Good job. Doubtful debts is a bit different because doubtful debts, firstly, it wasn't pre-printed, so there's no balance. Secondly, it's a negative figure. So it's a little bit tricky. We're going to put the date as normal. And although it's hard not to abbreviate for this one, I'm going to have to write really small. You can do the same. So it it changed because of and what we did is ended up having a credit figure or a negative debit. So we're going to just write CR there. So it actually has a credit figure of 500, so we're going to credit it. The actual journal entry is debit allowance for doubtful debts, credit doubtful debts. And because it's an expense item or a negative expense, that has to be closed off to 0 as well to income summary. Hope you can read my writing all right. Alright, last three, drawings. So drawings, it starts off with a balance. You can see we've got $60,000 in there. Good for the owner, it's on the debit side. Again, it's a balance, so there's no debit or credit. Now we're going to close drawings off to somewhere different because it's not income or expense. Where does drawings get closed off to? Good, capital, because it's the owner taking it out. And it'll impact the opening balance for next year for the owner. So we've got capital there. It's debit to make it 0. We're going to credit it. And that's called a closing entry, as these income summary ones. So then we've got our income summary account, put the date in, where all our income gets closed off to. All our expenses get closed off to. So if we look at our income, there's only one income there, that's the delivery fees. So to close that off, we're going to go debit to delivery fees to make that 0, credit to income summary. So in the income summary, so that's closing all your income off. If there was more than one, we could just put income and all of them together, sundry income, or do them separately. For expenses, we're going to have to add up all our expenses and then take away that allowance for doubtful debts. And we're going to credit the expenses and we're going to debit income summary. So we're going to put it in here and take it out of there. So next year starts off with a 0 balance for them. So like you get a calculator out and add up all the expenses and take off that doubtful debts. Right, did you get an answer? I've got 232,850. Make sure you calculate those as well, please, because just give you a bit of confidence on that. Sometimes you need to do these twice where there's more than one number. So the difference between, I'll subtract that 284 from what we've just got. That's 51,150. Still got a credit balance there, and then I'm going to close that off. Okay, so I just did a recalculation to check that again. We're adding up the items of the new figures, and it looks like I calculated wrong. So that should be 232,400. That's why it's worth doing a couple of times. So that closing balance will therefore be 284, 51,600. And then to close it off, it's a credit, so we'll put 51,600. We'll bring that down to 0. Where does income summary close off to? That's right, capital. And to finish off capital, we've got our opening balance of 40,000. We're going to add our profit, and that comes from income summary of 51,600. And then we're going to take away our drawings of 60,000. So we've got 91,600 here. Minus the 60,000 gives us closing balance of 31,600. Well done, that was a long one today. There's one of these to do and another exercise. Thanks, bye.